Hello friends, Happy New Year. It's lovely to see you back here for 2025. I'm so excited to talk about all of the things that I've been working on over the festive period and that we'll be working on into 2025. I hope you had a lovely Christmas period. I did. It was lovely to spend time with family and just get some time to relax. And it was our first Christmas in the new house, so it was a bit weird but lovely. So yeah, if you've got any yarny presents or any books or anything, let me know what you got in the comments. I'll do a separate video, I think, on those sorts of things from my end. If we've not met before, I'm Eleanor. It's lovely to see you. I'm known online as Cosy Books and Knits. You can find me YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, where I chat about all things cozy, fibre arts, books. It's lovely to meet you. Please join in. Grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I'm drinking tea today, and let's get into it. So the first thing to chat about is a finished object. I only have one, and it's going to be a slightly different format because I don't have it with me because this was a gift knit. So this will actually be the first time you're seeing it because I didn't want my mum to see because it was a gift for her. So I've kept it a bit secret off of social media and the podcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some footage of her wearing this finished object and chat a little bit about it. So these were the cashmere mitts that she had asked for. She'd asked for a pair of fingerless gloves. I think I did mention this briefly in a yarn plans video or something like that in a previous podcast when I acquired this cashmere, but I've not shown you what I knit with it yet. So I knit the Cloudburst mitts pattern, and it's a free pattern actually, which is wonderful, and it's a really beautiful lace work. And she wanted a pair of fingerless mitts that were a very fine gauge but very warm, so I thought I'd splash out on some cashmere for a little treat, and it was lovely to work with. I really enjoyed knitting these up because the cashmere is so soft, and just working with that, feeling it on your hands the whole time you're working with it, is really lovely. And I actually had some leftovers, so I think I'll end up making a little something for myself out of some cashmere, but it was lovely. The pattern I ended up adjusting slightly because I was under gauge, because it is a fingering weight, but it seems to come out, or it felt to me like it was coming out quite a bit lighter gauge or a lighter weight than the pattern calls for. So I adjusted the pattern slightly, just adding on, I think the pattern calls for 3mm, or I could be wrong, but I used a 2.5mm needle, and I added an extra couple of stitches on the front and the back, and I picked up an extra couple for the thumb just to give a little bit more ease with the slightly finer yarn. And I also didn't do the twisted rib for the cuff. I started doing the twisted rib for the cuff, and I just found that, again, being a finer yarn, it looked quite because the twisted rib columns were so sort of tight together, the gaps between then the pearl rows were just looking a little bit gappy. I didn't really like the look of it. I like the look of twisted rib normally, but I felt that just a normal 1x1 rib would be more appropriate for the fibre, so I switched that out. But then all the lace charts, I did the same. I think I just did an extra couple of repeats to make them nice and long, and again because I was slightly off the row gauge. But it was a very easy to adapt pattern, so because it only comes in one size, because it's a free pattern, it's really easy to just keep that lace motif the same and add or detract some stitches either side of the motif. So yeah, give it a go. Being free pattern, there's nothing to lose if it doesn't work out, but I found it really easy to adjust that pattern to make it work for the fibre and the person I was knitting them for. We're not a very small-handed family, so I often find that with mitts that I have to either knit the largest size, or if they only come in one size them up a little. As that was my only finished object over the Christmas period, because I've been working on some bigger items, I will now talk about my works in progress. So my first work in progress I showed in the last podcast, and it was truly in its infancy. So we've got a lot of progress to share. That is my storm sweater for my fiance. It's grown a lot. I think I just had the back yoke and maybe one of the shoulders done when I last saw you, so I've gone pretty much the length of the body. I ran out, or I finished a ball of yarn here, so I went and started working on a sleeve instead. So I've got my collar done. I'm going to go down both sleeves, and then I'll get him to try it on with the sleeves and the collar done, just to see if I need to add any length to the body, because he's quite tall, and I think I only had one more pattern chunk, or I was halfway through the last pattern chunk and then just ribbing, so he may need a little bit more length. But I figured if I get the sleeves and the collar done, then I can see how it's going to sit on him, get more of an idea before I decide the body length. So body's on hold. I've just started a few rounds on the one sleeve on my nice new tiny mini needles, which I'll talk about in another video. So yes, that is that. I'm really loving working on this. I thought knitting, I've been putting off knitting a sweater for my partner for a very long time, almost a year, because I thought it would take absolutely ages to knit something long enough for him, because he's a whole foot taller than I am, and so I was putting it off. And this just has flown by. It really has. I think those pattern repeat sections are just so bite-sized and enjoyable, that they really do fly by. So I think I'm not going to be as scared of knitting really big garments now, because I can do it a lot faster than I think I can. So that pattern is the Storm Sweater by Petite Knit. It's the men's version, and I'm knitting it in Drops Charisma in the colour Olive. I am quite enjoying this yarn. I don't think it's my favourite. I'm not sure I'd use it again. It's fine. It's quite rustic, but yeah, I just think for a normal superwash yarn, or wool, because it's 100% wool I believe, but for a normal superwash wool, you could get softer for not much more money. I know drops are very affordable, and that's why I've used them whilst I've been a beginner. I'm not sure I'd use that again, but it's fine for what it is, and it will look lovely when it's done. My next work in progress was something I hadn't even cast on or even bought the wool for by the time we last chatted about my projects, but I just had an unshakable urge, as basically everyone on Instagram the last few weeks has had, to cast on the Sophie hood by Petite Knit. We've got two Petite Knit patterns. Both of my works in progress are Petite Knit. That's not very like me. I like to try and do things that are a little, not the super common things, but I'm also incredibly susceptible to influence, so if everyone's talking about it, I want to. I had not been on board with the balaclava trend this autumn, because I don't think I can pull off a balaclava. I've got a little round face and I love it on other people, but I don't think I'm quite cool enough for it, and I don't think the area of England that I live in is quite ready for that yet. But then when I saw the hood, I thought that was lovely, because it's like the Sophie pattern, so it is quite scarfy, but has that hood feel. And I always wear a scarf like over my head and wrapped around in a little sort of cozy cocoon way when I'm out and about and it's really cold, because I don't really like wearing a hat because they itch my head a bit, and they get a bit warm, and you can't take them off without, if you put a hat on, especially my hair, if I put a hat on, I'm committed to that hat for that day. So I like a scarf that I can throw over my head, but then they always fall off. So a hood I'm very excited about, as you could probably tell. But I have made a lot of progress on this. This has been my hyperfixation knit. It's so nice because whilst I've been watching Christmas movies and things like that, and in between playing games, it's so easy to work on. So this is the hood part there. So I'm halfway down, coming back down the other side of the hood, and then I just need to do, I've knitted this totally off gauge, but with this sort of Sophie patterns it doesn't really matter as long as you know your sort of increase rate, and I just did a few extra rows on the depth of the hood to make sure that it was about the right size still, because I was working at a smaller gauge than the pattern suggested. So I cast on the large thinking it would be a bit more like the medium, and then I just sort of adjust the hood as I go. And this is a Rowan. I can't actually remember what this yarn is called because it's been discontinued, I think, and this was the last remnants that my local yarn store had of this wool, so I put it on the screen. But it is a Rowan yarns, and it is so soft. It's the same sort of blown yarn that you get with the Drops Air and the Cameros, but I just want, this is what was accessible to me at the time because I impulse purchased and I didn't want to wait for like a Drops Air delivery to arrive. None of the yarn stores near me stock it. So this is what was available to me because it was on a 50% off clearance, so I thought I'd get a lovely quality for the price, so I thought I'd go for that and adjust the gauge rather than getting a lower quality yarn or more expensive, because I couldn't quite bring myself to spend like £60 on one scarf when it's Christmas. So this is what we went for, in this beautiful heathered grey colour. You can see I love the stockinette, or not stockinette, I love the garter stitch. It's so simple, it's got a beautiful halo, and it's going to feel so lovely against my neck for a 100% natural fibre. Oh, I just love that. Love it so much. So this is one of those knits where I'm just really looking forward to having the finished object, and that's lovely. It's been in prison the last couple of days and I've not been so motivated because I found a dropped stitch. This is where I am. I found a dropped stitch here. So I was trying to decide whether I pick it all the way up, and I did start that and it just wasn't working, so I think I'm going to weave that in. And I wanted to avoid that because I'm working at quite a loose gauge, so I feel like you'll see it, but when it's wrapped around my neck you won't see it. Only I will know about it and it will be fine. So I'm going to stitch that back in and pretend it never happened because I can't deal with any of the alternatives. But I'm really looking forward to having that done, and I'm going to see Nosferatu tomorrow evening in the cinema, so I may take it with me and see if I can get any progress done. I've never taken knitting to the cinema before, but I really like the idea of it, so we shall see. Maybe I won't, but maybe I will. So those are my only works in progress this month. I'm trying to be fairly monogamous to those and get those out of the way, and then I can start my 2025 plans. And speaking of 2025 plans, we now have acquisitions, and I've got some lovely acquisitions to share with you. I won't share everything I've acquired recently because I'm going to talk about that in another video. I'm going to do a yarn haul and a book haul and knitting supplies, so I'll just whiz through this and just show you a couple of things. So the first thing is the thing I'm so excited for, and this is going to be my first 2025 plan. I talked about this project in my winter knitting plans bucket list knits that I posted a few weeks ago, and this is the #1 thing that I've been so excited to work on. So I'm going to knit the Lumme by Sari Nordland, which I'll put on the screen here. It's a beautiful pattern, and I just adore that colourwork, and I've been craving a colourwork yoke because that's something I don't have in my wardrobe currently. Apologies if you can hear any noises. My partner is upstairs and he has decided it is time to jump and run about and gallivant just as I'm filming, so there we go. Anyway, so I have bought a sweater's quantity of Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool. I've not worked with this before, but I do have some in my stash and I like it. I think this is what I want that Drops charisma to be, and why I think I'll move to more of a non-superwash and the Filcolana brand for those sorts of sweaters now, because this, it still has that really rustic look, but it has a much nicer woolly feel. So I got, for my main colour, Red Squirrel, which is this beautiful rusty orange, which just, it's the autumn colour of dreams, even though we're in winter now, but I don't care. And to go with that, I've got Oatmeal. because I didn't want just a straight up white or cream, because I wanted a slightly lower contrast, slightly softer combination, and I think these are going to look absolutely lovely together. I've seen Young Folk Knits recently knit the Lumme pullover by Sarah Nordland. I'll put a picture of her finished object on the screen because I absolutely loved the colours that she chose, and that definitely inspired this combination. This is probably a little bit softer than hers. I know she used an Isaiah wool, and I definitely wanted something on the Peruvian squishy, bit more rustic side, so I went for this one. But the colours I think are going to look so stunning together, and I really can't wait to get started on this. When I finish the storm sweater, this is going to be my next sweater project. Next up was a Christmas present from my partner's mother. She went to Iona earlier this year, and I remember saying to her, oh, I bet there's going to be amazing wool up in the Highlands of Scotland. I am very jealous. And she brought me back some wool, which she managed to keep secret from her trip all the way through till Christmas. It's currently covered in cat hair, so please ignore that. Everything is covered in cat hair. I need to do a deep clean. I haven't, because we've been at my parents' for Christmas and I'll just cat hair everywhere. So yes, so this is the Iona, single origin Iona yarn. It's very rustic. It feels like a proper, that feels like proper wool. It's a proper Aran wool. So I have two of these in this beautiful sort of soft muted clay colour, which I think is going to be really nice. So if you have any ideas of what I can do with 320 meters of Aran weight wool, I would love to hear it. I'm really open to suggestions. I've been thinking about maybe getting a contrast colour to go with it and doing some sort of colourwork vest. That's a possibility. I don't know what else I would do, but I'm really excited to find a project for those because they are really special. Probably one of the most special yarns I'll have had the opportunity of working with so far in my fibre arts journey. And I would love to go to the Scottish Highlands one day and choose some of my own. So it's really exciting to get the chance to work with something with that level of heritage in the fibre arts community. So really excited to work with this. Next up, also from my mother-in-law to be, she got me a voucher for my local yarn store for Christmas. So I went to have a little spend, and I picked up this lovely mode at Rowan, which I think is their new collection, alpaca cotton, in this beautiful brown shade. But it's a very heathered brown, so the base is brown, but it's got a lot of sort of grey, black tones in there. Super heathered. This is a DK weight, and I got 6 balls, so I have, I think, 720 meters. So I think I'm going to again knit some sort of sweater vest with this. It's really nice. I think it's some sort of blown yarn with a cotton core and the alpaca fibres in it, so it's just got this beautiful halo, and I just love the colour. I think this would go so nice over the top of a lot of my dresses, so I think I'd like to do maybe quite a cropped short pinafore type sweater vest with like ties at the sides. So if you've got any pattern suggestions for something like that, then please let me know. I think that's what these will become. So that's the yarny portion of this podcast over. I'm sure I'll have more for you next podcast, but it's been a bit chaotic recently, so I feel like I've made less progress than I usually would, but it's Christmas, we're busy. So if you've just come to join the Fibre Arts part of this podcast, then thank you for joining us. You can click away now, but if you'd like to stay to hear about what I've been reading this month, then please do stay and join us. So the first book I read this month was An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. I'd seen this as it was released quite recently and is a dark academia sort of campus type story, and that is what speaks to me. That's my favourite. So I had to give this one a go, and it was fine. It was okay. I liked that it had a slightly different magic system to a lot of dark academia. Obviously, a lot of dark academia, probably my favourite dark academias, don't have magic in them, like The Secret History and If We Were Villains, but there's been this sort of subgenre of magical dark academia, and that's fine. I do enjoy that too. But this one, it was a standalone, and I think the magic system was a little bit confusing. Probably could have used being flashed out, and I think as the story arc was very sort of fast paced, because it was only like a 400-page book and had the whole sort of big story to do within that time. By the end of it, it was just sort of going a bit crazy and I wasn't really following it. Or I think I'd sort of lost all my sense of suspension of disbelief to the point where I was like, okay, that's happening, sure, great. So it was fine, but it wasn't my favourite. I thought that the magic system could have been fleshed out a lot more, and that the plot could have been paced a little bit better. And maybe, perhaps it just didn't really work as a standalone. The next book I read, I wanted to go into a Christmassy murder mystery. So I picked The Murder at Holly House by Denzel Mayrick. This has the most beautiful cover, I think, of any Christmas murder mystery I've seen ever. So I was really, really looking forward to it. And it was, to be honest, it was a complete cover buy. But also the fact that it was described as a Christmassy country house murder mystery. And I didn't get that. That's not what this turned out to be. The amount of time actually spent in Holly House, the Christmassy country house that I felt like this was sold to me as, was negligible. It really was not that much part of the story. It was actually a bigger sort of village conspiracy type mystery, and it just didn't have those sort of Agatha Christie-esque vibes that I was looking for. It was a lot more sort of, I don't want to give any spoilers, so I don't want to say what the plot was, but there's a specific sort of trope that this book went down that isn't one that I enjoy. Others may, others have, but it's not really for me. And if I'd have known that that was going to be part of it, I wouldn't have picked this one up. But the marketing definitely was showing it as a country house, Agatha Christie type Christmassy murder mystery. So I was just left feeling a little bit disappointed that I didn't get what I wanted out of this book. Then, because I needed Christmas vibes that I hadn't got from that previous books, I went for one of the cheesiest Christmas romances I could possibly find, which was Only for Christmas by Tracy Corbett. And this was just cute. It was cute. It wasn't amazing. Look at it. It's, you know, it's never going to be amazing. They are what they are. It's like the equivalent of a Hallmark film. You know what you're getting. You're getting a cute, cozy, slightly cheesy, Christmassy romance. That's all I wanted. The only critique I would have of this one, if I'm reading deeply into it, which I probably shouldn't, is the fact that the main plot point was that it was a fake dating romance, that she was fake dating to get out of the fact that her boss is harassing her. That's not really giving fun Christmas, is harassment and needing the only way you can stop your boss sexually harassing you is to have another boyfriend. That's a slightly problematic way of dealing with that issue. But throughout the book it does sort of develop, and I minded it less, but I had to really put that aside and just enjoy the story for what it was and the romance for what it was, whilst not really thinking about that plot point that didn't feel didn't feel that feminist to me. But I had fun, and it was Christmas, and it was cute, and that's all I was looking for. So it did what it said on the tin. And that is all the books I read last month. I'm currently reading A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft, which has the prettiest cover in the entire world ever. I'm currently about halfway through this, so if you want to hear what I think, then please subscribe and stick around, and I will chat about my thoughts when I finish this in the next podcast. So thank you again for joining me today. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I hope you've enjoyed sitting down with me and getting cozy today. Let me know what you've been working on whilst you've been watching. I'd love to hear, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you again for joining. Bye.